Most people think hidden cameras only happen in movies, but the following stories prove otherwise. These are true hidden camera horror stories. Last summer, my girlfriend Emma and I booked a small apartment in Chicago for a weekend trip. It wasn't anything fancy, just a clean studio with decent reviews and self-check-in. Everything felt normal at first. The place looked exactly like the photos: minimal furniture, clean sheets, neutral walls, nothing out of the ordinary. But the first thing Emma pointed out when we walked into the bedroom was the smoke detector. It was directly above the bed, not near the door, not in the center of the room, right above the pillows. "Is that normal?" she asked. I shrugged. I honestly didn't know. We dropped it and went out for dinner. That night, sometime around 2:30 a.m., I woke up randomly. No noise, no movement. Just that uncomfortable feeling that something wasn't right. The room was dark except for faint streetlight coming through the blinds. And that's when I noticed it, a tiny red light. On the smoke detector, it wasn't blinking like normal ones do, it was solid. I stared at it for maybe 10 seconds before it disappeared. I told myself it was probably just a power indicator, but then it came back. Solid red, not flashing, just on. I nudged Emma awake and asked if smoke detectors usually had steady lights. She didn't answer at first. She was staring at the ceiling. "I don't think it's supposed to look like that," she whispered. The next morning, I grabbed a chair and stood on the bed to take a closer look. The plastic cover looked slightly off, like it had been opened before. There were tiny scratch marks near the edge. I unscrewed it, and inside, where the sensor should have been, there was a small black device taped into the casing, with a lens, a very small circular lens, pointing straight down at the bed. Emma immediately started crying. I pulled it out and saw a micro SD card inside. It wasn't a smoke detector, it was a camera. We contacted the host immediately. He claimed he had no idea what we were talking about, said the unit had been professionally cleaned and inspected. We called the police. They arrived within 20 minutes. When they checked the device, they confirmed it was actively recording. It wasn't old, it wasn't abandoned. It had footage from the previous night of us sleeping. The host stopped responding after that. The listing disappeared 2 days later. The police told us they found similar devices in 2 other units owned by the same person. I don't know how long it had been there, or how many people were recorded, but sometimes I still think about that red light, and whether it was ever really off. In 2022, I moved to Los Angeles for a 3-month internship. Instead of signing a lease, I rented a furnished studio apartment through a rental app. The place was small but clean. There was a bed, a desk, and a small bathroom. On the desk was a white USB wall charger already plugged in. I didn't think anything of it. I actually appreciated it. The first weird thing happened about a week in. My phone started overheating at night, not during use, only when plugged into that charger. One night I woke up because my phone felt hot under my pillow. I unplugged it and noticed something strange. The charger block had a tiny pinhole on the side, not where the USB port was. On the plastic casing, it was barely noticeable. At first I thought it was a manufacturing defect, but curiosity got the best of me. The next day, while the host was at work, I unplugged it and examined it closer. I used a flashlight on my phone. When I angled the light into the pinhole, I saw glass, reflective glass, like a lens. My stomach dropped. I searched online for USB charger hidden camera. The results looked exactly like what I was holding. I didn't want to believe it, and so I opened it. The casing popped off easily. Inside was a tiny camera module wired into the charger, with a micro SD card and a wireless transmitter. I immediately looked around the room. The desk faced the bed, and the bed faced the bathroom door, which I often left slightly open at night. The camera had a direct view of everything. I felt sick. I packed a bag and left immediately, but before I did, I checked something. On my phone, I opened Wi-Fi settings. There was a network listed called IPCam_04. It only appeared when I was inside the apartment. When I stepped outside, it disappeared. I reported it to the rental platform and the police. They confiscated the device. A week later, an officer called me. He told me the camera had been accessed remotely multiple times over the past month. The host claimed it belonged to a previous tenant, but records showed the apartment had been vacant before I moved in. I don't know who was watching, or if they were watching live, but I do know one thing. That charger wasn't there to charge phones. This happened last winter. 4 of us rented a large house in Colorado for a ski trip. It was an older property. Wooden floors, exposed beams, and loud heating vents that rattled when the furnace kicked on. On the second night, my friend Ryan mentioned hearing a faint clicking sound from the vent above his bed. We laughed it off. Old houses make noises. But later that night, around 1 a.m., I heard it too. A subtle mechanical click. Not random, not creaking wood. Deliberate. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The vent was positioned high on the wall near the ceiling. I stood on a chair to get closer. At first, I saw nothing unusual, just dust and metal slats. Then I angled the light differently, and I saw it. A tiny circular reflection behind the vent grill, perfectly centered, like an eye staring back. I felt my chest tighten. I unscrewed the vent cover. Behind it, wedged between insulation and drywall, was a small black device with a lens and a blinking blue light. Ryan grabbed his phone and checked available Wi-Fi networks. There was one we hadn't noticed before. Livestream_Unit 3. It showed full signal. We hadn't set up Wi-Fi yet. The router downstairs was still in the box. Someone had installed their own device. While we were standing there staring at it, the blue light stopped blinking and turned solid. Then it shut off. At that exact moment, Ryan's phone refreshed. The Livestream_Unit 3 network disappeared. Someone had disconnected in real time. We weren't discovering an old camera, we were interrupting a live feed. We called the property owner. He sounded genuinely confused, said the house had been empty for months. Police later confirmed the camera had cellular capabilities. It didn't even need Wi-Fi, meaning whoever installed it could access it from anywhere. They never found out who placed it there. No fingerprints, no purchase records tied to the owner, nothing. We finished the trip in a hotel, and I still think about that moment. The second the blue light went dark, because that meant someone was watching us right up until we looked back.